Here from howtodrawcomics.net, and today I'm joined by an incredible talent, none other than B.A. Turner, aka Brent Turner, the creator of Vigilantes Creed. And today we've got him on the Creator Spotlight to talk about how he got into comics, what piqued his interest in this particular storytelling media in the first place, and then the process that he went through from taking an idea, turning it into a comic book, and then eventually crowdfunding it on Indiegogo. So I'm sure you've been on one heck of an epic journey throughout the course of the creation of Vigilantes Creed, Brent. Let's talk a little bit about where it all began for you. So,
Mhm,
what got you into comics? When were you first interested in creating your own?
mhm.
And what has kept you in the comic creating game all this time? Because it's a lot of hard work. So, yeah, I'll give you the stage.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I grew up in a tiny little farm town in Michigan, uh, actually growing up and working on a farm. And so I didn't get exposed at all to comics as a child. We didn't have a comic book shop anywhere within like an hour radius,
Hmm.
and we never really went outside of that hour radius when you live a farm life. And so I didn't really get exposed to anything comic book related until my senior year in high school. I got in a really bad accident, and all I could do was sit and stare at a TV for about 6 months. And my brother had purchased the first four seasons of Smallville, and that introduction to Clark Kent, the story of Superman becoming Superman, Green Arrow, and all those supporting characters is what really just spurred that initial interest just to that level of escapism. Because again, at that point there really weren't superhero movies. My family didn't go to the movies for stuff like that. So just seeing such phenomenal characters and just that level of escapism is what really kind of triggered that for me. And then as I got into college, that's when things went crazy with comic book movies, right? Every month there was a brand new Marvel movie or DC movie, and there were a group of films that just really made me feel something and just grew that level of love for comic book creations. And so I started collecting comic books, especially Deathstroke, Teen Titans, anything that Marv Wolfman touched, and then Doctor Fate, Lobo, things like that.
Very cool.
And yeah, just the combination of that and that love for comic book films is what really made me wanna create something myself. And, you know, the reason why I went kind of the supernatural route was, when I was 20 years old, I got a gargoyle chess piece, a tattoo. And that night I had this really vivid dream of a gargoyle standing atop a Detroit cathedral overlooking the city. And I just remember waking up feeling as if I was in that moment, like as if I was that creature. And for years, I would have daydreams or other dreams where that idea would just keep popping up and it would kind of expand. But I never thought, I can't do anything with it. I'm married, I work a 9 to 5, and I got to this point in my life where things were really bad. I was in a really dark place. And one night I just sat down and just started typing, and I just fell in love with expanding on that idea and creating the characters and the story. And I started out writing two novels,
Mm.
and that's where this project is. It's a hybrid project. I have two full prose novels, but as soon as I got to the point where I'm like, I need some phenomenal cover art. I need something that sets me apart. And I reached out to yourself, and because I saw Kozar, that was one of my first kind of pieces of art that I stumbled upon on Twitter where I was
Oh,
like,
wow,
man,
really?
yeah, the cleanness of the art, the lines, the smoothness of the colors and the tone. I was just like, that's how I envisioned my characters, right? With that darkness and just the art just spoke to me because and
I'm
when you
very
have your
honored.
own yeah, when you have your own idea for characters in your mind and you see certain artists' work, you can kind of get a sense of, that style would fit my character. I can envision it. And others, like, it's great art, but it just doesn't fit what's in your head. And so I reach out to you and you're like, oh, my brother drew this as well. He can color, he can do the whole 9 yards. And that's what opened that door, and Corey did the first cover for my first novel, and I was like, I got to get more. I got to see more of these characters come to life. He did the second cover, and then I was like, I got to get more. I'm like, I'm not ready to necessarily do a full-blown comic at this point from an investment standpoint because I wanted to create everything before I crowdfunded. And Corey's obviously working on a handful of projects, and Dramanoids, and also what you guys got cooking. And so I'm like, I'm gonna do something different, and I'm gonna do what I call a mini comic. And I'm not talking in size, but this is something that will display most of the major scenes from these stories. It'll introduce every major and supporting character and provide that visualization aspect that's missing in novels, but also hopefully maybe reignite some interest in novels for the comic readers and comic creators, because at some point probably all of us read novels, were inspired by a novel or two, and I wanted to just reignite that interest to where it's like, hey, you can get a in-depth and detailed story with more dialogue and more action in regards to the dynamic of prose, but you can get the art as well to where you can visualize the characters and play it out like a film versus being distracted or getting bored, because it is hard to read some novels without some art.
Yeah,
So
totally.
that's the route I took, and long term, I plan on doing full blown comic issues. But I wanted to get some feelers out there for my characters, the quality of art that I want to have in my projects, and see what people think. So
For
that's kind
sure.
of how it progressed.
That's great. And you started out not unlike the way in which Corey and I started out. We were in a small town growing up where the only place we could get comics was a local news agency.
Mm,
And over here in Australia, the only real things that they stocked as far as comic book titles was The Phantom and AD 2000 with Judge
mm,
Dredd.
mm,
And that was about it. Maybe they had a few Simpsons comics in there too, but I wasn't really interested in those.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, and then we moved over to Melbourne, which is a much bigger city here in Australia, and we were introduced to just a ocean of variety of comic book that was out there. And
mhm,
I think even before that, though, in high school, I was introduced to Spawn, and I had seen the Spawn movie
mm,
actually before that as a kid, and I really loved that character. I
mhm,
thought, man, what a really cool design! As it was the kind of design that just stuck with you that you would
mhm,
remember if you saw it again. And
yep,
then hearing Todd McFarlane's story in his documentary, "The Devil Between the Lines" or something like that, that was just so inspiring to hear about how he came up in the game and the pathways that he took in order to create this comic book company
mhm,
and r- publish books that were based on his character, his creator owned character. And then, of
mhm,
course, he gave those opportunities and, well, at least opened the door to the other artists within Marvel Studio at the time to
mhm,
be able to put out their own projects and their own comic book characters and whatnot. And it was just a really inspiring story to hear about. And
mhm,
so I think that is really the spirit that I create comics from, and I'm sure it's similar to you as well, where it's just
mhm,
I think seeing that level of passion and creativity in somebody else,
mhm,
it conjures it up for yourself. It
right.
it compels you to do the same thing. That's what we call being inspired.
Mhm,
And so yeah, it's just a really relatable story that you've told there, at least for me and Corey, I think.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, I think, that's the thing, there's the inspiration aspect and then there's the uniqueness aspect, right? When I saw your guys's Kozar, it was unique to me. It stood out from mainstream comics and even from a lot of indie comics.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
when I saw certain, superhero films, for example, for me, it's, Snyder films. He had a different approach in Watchmen, especially it just had this different tone, the colors, the way he did, the cinematomics was just
Yeah,
it was so unique that I'm the type of person that, I don't want to create something that's just like something else or something that is common. I want something completely unique. And seeing those films and seeing like films like Inception, right? Interstellar that really make you think and they
yeah,
really make you feel. That's what I wanted to create. Something that didn't just have the visual appeal, but it had the emotional appeal. And, someone would read, my story and be like, I didn't expect that. That wow, like that's made me feel something and it's unique, So, I strive to create something unique and, teaming up with Corey, he did that. The way he was able to bring these characters to life, the design that I had in my mind, and he was what he created was it was like he was reading my mind. I mean, literally, and I mean, the gargoyle just looks so intense and unique, and, that's what I'm striving for.
yeah, for sure.
Mm,
And Corey, you're welcome to join us here on the show
yeah,
if you'd like. I'll send Corey the link to jump on if he wants.
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see if he makes it. But yeah, man, it must be so surreal to see another really talented comic book artist bring your characters to life and
Mhm.
envision them, not only in a way that you might not have expected, but in the exact way that you thought they would be visualized.
Mhm.
And so, describe that feeling. What is that like to see an artist with great talent bring your characters into reality, manifest them on the page?
Well, what's so cool is, I've talked with other comic book writers and every artist has their own process. And, I have a friend where he doesn't even really get updates along the way. He gives reference material and then like he's got the lines are done. And what I loved about working with Corey was that he would show me updates along every step of the way. So seeing the lines progress, just being able to be exposed to the process was amazing. And not being an artist myself, really, it was so cool to just see the transformation because when you get that first, sketch or layout, it's so hard to imagine it. If you're going backwards,
Mm,
actually turning into that final creation and, him being so open to making modifications and trying different things along the way really helped make it the best design and the best art possible. The patience that he had and just the level of detail he put into it was amazing. And when I got that first like finished piece, it to me it validated my my hard work because I'm like, that's my character. Like you can try to explain things in words as much as possible when it comes to visual things, but being able to actually be like, man, everyone look at my characters. I could describe them all day long, but it's not enough, even for myself, and seeing that was just like, wow, this is exactly what I imagined in my mind. And then when I went back and reread my novel and took that visualization while I was reading and again played it out like a film, it made it that much more enjoyable. And that's where I was like, if I can do that for every single character and for more scenes in the book, like it's going to be such a unique reading experience for
Yeah,
people, you know. And again, that's what it was all about, providing something unique. And yeah, you know,
absolutely.
he made that happen for me. So,
That's so cool. And I can hear the excitement in your voice as you talk about
mhm,
it and how happy and passionate you are about the work that Corey has put out there for you.
mhm,
And, obviously I've seen it myself, and it really does seem like this is the kind of comic book that not only has characters with really cool designs, but just such a potent, dark mood to it. And I think Corey has always brought that to his work through the shadows and details that he layers in
mhm,
on top of those characters.
mhm,
And
mhm,
he's got a range of different styles that he works in, but I'm so glad that he still has that dark
mhm.
look to his work that he can cultivate when the time calls for it. Because for projects such as yours, with the kind of characters that we're looking at and reading about, it just suits it right down to the ground. So
Yep, absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about what your story, Vigilantes Creed, is actually about, and
Mhm.
I guess some of the roots to it, like whether or not it started out as this perfectly formed story, and if not, how did it evolve over
Mhm.
time? What was the seed of the idea? How did this wonderful book begin?
Yeah, so, like I mentioned earlier, the seed started with the dream and just this image of this powerful and intimidating gargoyle on top of a cathedral.
Now, was this a nightmare, your dream, or was it a
No,
cool, fun
it
dream
was a
that
cool,
really
like,
got you
like I
pumped?
felt like I was the gargoyle overlooking the city.
Oh, you were the
And
gargoyle. Cool.
yeah, like in a protecting manner, right? And
Yeah.
like I said, I'd have like these little daydreams of, that gargoyle taking down a criminal, or, just, fun stuff like that. And, that first night that I sat down and actually just typed, I had some liquid encouragement. I had just left a movie. It was like 3 in the morning, and not a time you would expect to start writing for the first
Mm.
time in your life. And it
Wow.
just flowed. Like, the character development, the start of the story where he gets bound to this angelic grimoire. It's like I started pulling influences from my upbringing, from religion, and it just flowed. And just out of nowhere, I created this villain, and the design, his abilities, it was just crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't prepare to create them. I didn't even have the ideas for them. It just flowed. And then once I had the skeleton or the base for those characters, that's when I was able to just sit down and just brainstorm and research and really, really develop them. Um,
Yeah. That's so cool.
yeah.
And it's true. Gargoyles really are protectors.
Hmm.
So it's very appropriate to have one as a protagonist.
Hmm.
Corey's just joined us, one of
What's
the
up?
artists who are a part
What's up,
of.
man?
Is Corey the only artist on this book, or are there others?
So he's the primary artist. He did the
Wow.
covers for both novels and the main cover for the mini comic, and then he's doing about 90% of the interior art. And outside of him, I just had Elliot Rodriguez. He's an up and coming artist in CG. Really great guy. He did 2 pages of the interiors for like transition pages, which I'll be having, Corey color, of course. And he did a black and white art print that folks get with the bundle packages. And then I brought Joe Ball in because, a lot of people love black and white art, me especially. I love seeing Corey's, finished, lines and inks. And so I wanted to provide just just a comic with all the black and white art that's tied to the project. And Joe Ball is just nuts with
Mm.
black and white art. And so he had once said, hey, if you ever want me to do a cover, and like within a second, like I message him, I'm like, I'll take you up on that.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
And
awesome.
I'm like, here's the characters, just go nuts. Just go nuts. And yeah, he just created a crazy black and white cover. So, just again, just having something for everybody, whether it's in the prose format, the comic, format, or black and white art for the folks that want to collect that type of stuff.
I can really picture Joe Ball's artwork in one of those old school fantasy novels, actually.
Hmm.
The kind of novels where every 2 pages or three, you would see a
Hmm.
kick ass illustration off to
Hmm.
the side. So, yeah,
Hmm.
great getting him on board for that. Corey,
Yep.
what's it been like to work with Brent B.A. Turner, and how have
Oh,
you found the content, the themes that you've been dealing in within this particular art project or comic book project or novel project? I guess it's kind of all of those things put together, isn't it?
Hmm.
yeah, man. He's been pretty awesome to work for. He's promoted my work a lot, and yeah, just a good guy to work with. I do like the source material, like drawing monsters, some babes every now and then. Lots of great characters. He also gives me a lot of references, slideshows, and like details for what to do, which helps out a lot doing the commissions. So it's been
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, that's great. And Brent was telling me that you have been showing him along the way as you've created these artworks for him, different stages of the process.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? And how has it led to a better outcome for these pieces that you've been working on for him? Because there's other
Oh,
artists. The reason I ask is that there's definitely other artists out there who are looking to get work from clients, and it seems like the two of you are a great example of that working relationship really flowing smoothly. And so, I just want to talk a little bit about the process of that and how it's been.
yeah, heck yeah. Well, I think when I'm working for people, I generally want to make sure I'm actually drawing what they really want in general and know what I want. So I think it's important to send updates. And plus, it's sort of eliminates like big errors happening later on where it's like, say I didn't show them anything and I'd done this full on detailed piece, and they're like, well, this character doesn't actually look like my character. You're gonna have to like redraw the entire thing. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like important to send sketches, or if it's colors, I send like the flats, I send the
Yeah,
different layers throughout the whole
Hmm.
process. So and then hopefully BA Turner's happy with the final outcome.
for sure. Now
Absolutely.
he's gotten you to do a few corrections along the way. How did you deal with that? Because I mean, let's face it, it can be tough sometimes. It can be discouraging,
Oh
and
yeah.
it can be well, let's face it, a pain in the butt to have to go back and fix something up. But
How
you seem to have taken it gracefully.
Nah, man. I think, like I said before, he's been pretty easy to work with because he gives me such like detailed descriptions of what he wants, the references, and he hasn't given me that many hardcore like corrections. Like for example, when I'm working with Clayton, he can give me some pretty hardcore corrections. So BA10 has been pretty good to work with,
So he's a
and
bit more flexible.
yeah,
Yeah,
and plus it's like, if you're working for someone, like it's kind of like whatever they want, you got to do. Otherwise, it sucks when the job's finished and it feels like they're not actually happy with it in the end. So I always want to make sure they're happy with the end product.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Cool. And what has the so when it comes to actually figuring out who you're going to work with and get on board with these projects, Brent, I know that you saw Kozor and you're like, man, I need some of
Hmm.
that good stuff in my book.
Hmm.
Um, Corey, you seem to have been, you know, getting commissions come in all year. Uh, how is it that you get commissions in the first place? I mean, I know that the story between you and Brent is pretty obvious, and we've already somewhat touched on it because he saw Kozo, so he's like, man, let's reach out to these guys and see if they're available. But is that how it works for all of your other clients too?
Uh, I think it's been like reoccurring people hiring me. So if I do a good job for
So
someone,
Brent,
they'll probably hire me again. Yeah, for example, Brent, and there's another guy who keeps getting me to do character designs.
Mhm.
And, I think to get it all started, I was posting out stuff for Kozo and Drominoids. That's when it captured people's interest that I could work for them. So,
hmm
yeah. But I am
Yeah,
open
and
for commission if anyone wants to know.
well, and I'll say too, just Corey's art on my project. I know two people personally that have hired him for pieces just from
Yeah,
seeing that art and talking with me, and
I've gotten
that's
work through I've gotten work
mhm,
through Turner a bunch of times
yeah,
too.
and
From
that's kind of one of my goals too. Is I want to help my artists grow so that they're not stuck doing a 9 to 5 like like me and they're not hating what they do during the day. They're doing their passion instead, and with me being in both spaces of novels and comics, I also want to try to encourage novel creators to reach out to comic creators such as yourselves for cover art because a lot of times they're kind of disconnected from the comic side of things and they think, "Oh, comics it looks too cartoony or, it wouldn't be appropriate for a novel cover art." And I think I've proven that that's not the case. A lot of artists have many different styles that they can do, and a lot of times it's just a matter of get on Twitter and just find these artists and look at different pieces and see what speaks to you, because a lot of these creators get pigeonholed into either A, it's too much money, I'll just use AI, or I'll use stock images, and
yeah,
then they struggle to market, or they believe, well, I have to find a novel cover artist who's worked with a big name, and those guys will charge $3,000 for art that to me is mid. It's nothing great, and there are so many people, you guys and so many other folks in the indie space that are so much more affordable that folks could literally just save up a couple months and get a killer piece, but they can also work with that artist to design their characters, right? They can learn from them, and they may be able to create something better than they ever expected, like myself, where other artists in the novel space, they're going to do something more generic. They may not spend time to do a stream with you, right? To go over your characters or to review reference material. So I want to bring more work to folks in the indie space, to folks like yourself, and just help both mediums grow, help the indie space grow, so that everyone can be successful.
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And yeah, there is these days just so many incredibly talented people out there. I
Mhm.
was looking at our How to Draw Comics group just this morning. I wanted to check up
Mhm.
on how many members we had gotten because we got this influx of requests recently, over a
Oh,
thousand requests. It's just starting
yeah.
to get impossible to go through, even with three admins. But
Mhm.
I was scrolling through the news feed in the How to Draw Comics group, and there is insane levels of art in there.
Mhm.
And as you said, Brent, a lot of them, if you were to reach out to them and ask for a commission, ask them to do a piece for you, it wouldn't be as expensive as you would think. I mean,
Mhm.
even if it's let's say let's say 300 to 500 within that bracket,
Mhm.
that seems like a decent amount of money. But it actually, for a piece of art that is
Mhm.
custom made to your
Mhm.
specifications,
Mhm.
it's not that much, and you can get a very
Mhm.
decent quality of art for that price.
Yeah.
And it's just it's amazing to think about. And not only that, but if you have scored a good artist, they'll probably sit there and take more time to work on it than is
Mhm.
worth their while. I mean, I know that's
Mhm.
certainly the case For me, I'm not sure about Corey. I'm guessing, Corey takes forever to do things too. So I'm guessing that's the case for him as well. But
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, I think, man, I don't know about the whole AI stuff. It's a strange thing to think about because I feel like, yeah, it is so much effort to create a piece of art, one that truly speaks to the audience, speaks to the creator that you've been commissioned by.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something special about it that stands a test of time when it's done right
Mm-hmm.
and can be enjoyed by generations to come. I mean, you've seen that. You've been inspired by that. Every artist coming up in the game right now, they have their own inspirations that they could be the legendary Frank Frazetta, could be the legendary um, John Buscema. For us, it's I really love Alfredo Alcala. We grew up in a generation of Todd McFarlane and Mark Silvestri and Michael Turner. And, even if these guys aren't doing as much art anymore or aren't doing any art whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
it's still enjoyed and looked up to and experienced on a daily basis. They found glory within the
Mm-hmm.
work that they were able to do. And what greater purpose is there to live for when it comes to your passions? What is a greater motivator than finding glory within your passion? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the ultimate goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's certainly where your compass is pointed for Vigilantes Creed as well, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you're off to a flying start and you've come a really long way. When you said that you sat down at like 3 a.m. in the morning and just
Mm-hmm.
knocked out this flow of creativity
Mm-hmm.
onto the page and it just came pouring out, had you written anything before that point? And what do you think? I mean, I know that this dream had been somewhat following you around for a while, and you were likely playing out a number of scenarios inside your head that were connected with it. Maybe they were
Mm-hmm.
ready to just come out. Maybe they had cooked enough in the oven and they were ready.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some, I know what you're talking about, that experience. And when it's triggered, it is so amazing because it seems like you can create something epic almost effortlessly, or at
Mm-hmm.
least begin the process of doing so
Mm-hmm.
when you're just really in that zone and in your element. It's one of the best places to be as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think caused you to click over into that mode? Like, why at that point in time, at that moment, at that hour, did you decide to sit down and just start smashing it out? Was it just, it was busting to come out and you couldn't hold it any longer?
I think it was a mixture, like I said, I had been sitting on the idea for about 5 years. Um, but I hinted at it earlier, like I was just at like the, the darkest time of my life, and I didn't have an avenue to express myself and to try to heal. And for me, that process of writing was so therapeutic.
Mm,
Initially it was just to get my feelings out through escapism, right? To create a better reality through a story. And prior to that, like I had just written some poetry, and that was really it. But at the time, just going through that dark period and then being exposed to some films that just they really hit me hard at that time, because when you're going through certain things in life, you get impacted by creative works differently, right? If you're at a really happy point in your life and you watch Watchmen, it's not going to hit you the way it does when you're struggling in life and you can relate to those characters. So at that time, certain movies just spoke to me, and I was like, man, I really want to create something can that someone can relate to, that they can, just feel something and and want to strive to be inspired and to maybe create something themselves. And as I was writing, it went from therapy to just passion, just I would write a chapter and then I would just kind of pause and be like, how in the hell did I come up with that idea? Like, I never thought I was capable of writing something so powerful or in my opinion, beautiful, or a character that was so unique. And that just motivated me to do more and to be better and continue to hone my skills and learn from those that inspired me, and that passion to create something unique but also affect others with my writing just grew. And as I'm writing this story from a dark place and my characters in a dark place, it progressed along with my life. I found a way out of that dark place in my life. I moved across to the other side of the world. I met the right person, and my character developed in the story, and that escapism grew, that hope, that optimism, and it carried all the way to the end of the story. And it's just a way to showcase to people, right? Things can improve in your life. You can find, ways out of the darkness. And I want that story to showcase that to others, and, to be able to use that escapism and entertainment to help you through a dark period, because that this story is what kept me alive for a few years. It's what got me out of that hole. And I would just love for someone one day to read it and be like, "Man, this helped me through such a bad time. It gave me inspiration, just like those films gave to me during that time." And it was a bonus that those films spurred that creativity. And who knows, maybe my story can do that for others. And I'm sure your guys' art has done that for others. And Corey's art just added a major bonus onto that for me, because at first it was just prose, it was just novels, right? And then it's like, I had that interest in comics and that love for comics, but seeing those characters come to life, it spurred that inspiration to make it into a real comic down the line, right? And be able to provide that for the comic community and not just, the folks that read novels.
That's so incredible. Yeah, I it's so interesting to me because the stuff that we create sometimes, I don't think we realize what a impact it can have on the world fully.
Mhm, mhm,
Sometimes I notice this most with my videos, the ones I put out when it comes to drawing comic books or motivation especially, but
mhm,
also our art. You hear people and how much they admire it, for some reason or another. Some people just connect with it, and
mhm,
they connect with it so much that they feel compelled to reach out and tell you about it, which
mhm,
is huge. Like to sit down and put the effort into saying, "Hey, this video or this piece of artwork or this comic book that you created connected with me and
mhm,
made an impression, made an impact." It can come as a surprise sometimes because I think that as creators, where we do, most creators anyway, tend to keep a humbleness about them, where they're always hoping that what they put out there will measure up in some way, that it'll be
mhm,
noticed.
mhm,
But I don't think we ever expect necessarily that it's going to change people's lives
mhm,
or stay with them in any significant way. And so when it does, it makes you feel like, man, I it's almost my responsibility to put this stuff out there now. I owe it to the world because it would almost be selfish not to do what I've been doing
mhm,
with the impact that it's having on other people.
mhm,
And so, yeah, I think that there's a very good chance that you'll put this book out there, Brent, and someone at some point is going to read it, a person who may have been where you were at or could be in a slightly different place, and
mhm,
it's going to really speak to them. And I guess that in the end, has always been the point of art. It's for people to connect with, for people
Absolutely.
to relate with,
Hmm.
for it to leave an impact, to leave an effect on them.
Hmm.
And when it comes to movies and the amount of inspiration you can get from them, right
Hmm.
there with you. For
Yep.
me, it's Watchmen was a really great example because, I mean, the blue guy in that, I forget his name, Mr. Manhattan,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
Rorschach,
Hmm.
these characters and the way that they view the world.
Yep.
Oh man, that is just such a place that I'm in sometimes.
Hmm.
That nihilistic view, or that, I don't know if you'd call it nihilistic, but just it's almost the hopelessness of humanity in a sense.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I just really love that darker side. And then another great movie that had so much mood in it that I felt uh, needed to be in Borok, especially the next comic book that I'm bringing out, was
Hmm.
one called Valhalla Rising with Mads Mikkelsen. And it's not like there was a whole lot of dialogue in that, but it was just the mood and the surrealness of that. It was just such a dark, desaturated context.
Hmm.
It was a very depressing representation of this medieval world,
Hmm.
and the hopelessness that this guy was faced with. But you know what I really love is these stories where someone will be put through so much adversity and
Hmm.
still come out victorious at the end. And
Hmm.
and you're thinking along the way, there's no way that this guy is going to survive this. And he takes it all. It's like he doesn't get out of it. He takes it all on, but then still comes out the other end.
Hmm.
And it's just, there's something really powerful about those kinds of stories.
Yep.
But I am rambling now. But it's
Hmm.
just, yeah, man, I really relate with what you're saying about the whole movie thing. Almost every movie that I'm watching, you can ask Corey this because we watch movies together all the time.
Hmm.
I'm sitting
Yeah.
there, and from the moment the intro starts playing, if it's a really good movie, I'm thinking about, okay, how can I apply the things that are working in this movie to a
Hmm.
story that I might want to work on?
Hmm.
And if it's a bad movie, how would I do it better? Like,
Exactly.
what is wrong with it? Why isn't it quite clicking? Corey, when it comes to story writing for you and bringing ideas from something that was just in your head out into a visual representation on the page. You did it with Kozor, you're doing it with Andromenoids, and no doubt you've got a bunch of other ideas cooking up as well.
Yeah.
What's the process like for you? Where do you draw inspiration from? I know Berserk was a big one for you,
Oh
and
yeah.
I know that there's certainly other franchises out there that have hit the mark for you. But
Yeah, man. I think. Well, yeah, like Berserk, I hadn't really seen anything like that until I seen like Berserk, the anime, and watched it, and I was like, wow. Like I didn't know there could be like comic books or manga or anime like that. And I was immediately drawn to it, and I was always into sort of like dark fantasy sort of stuff. Like I remember the old game Heretic 2 was
yeah,
kind of like dark fantasy stuff. So I love that. And I think for Andromenoids, it's sort of like the same thing. Like I was looking at a lot of Masman Shiro's work, who made Ghost in the Shell and stuff.
cool.
Hmm.
And he's made these other like art books, which are all in like Japanese. So you can't really read it. But I just really like the character designs and everything. And I was like, damn, like, why is there no American comic books like this? Like, with
Hmm.
sort of like sexy babe characters, guns, violence. Also, cyberpunk was a big influence. So,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Cool.
I think I find things out in the world that no one else is doing. I'm like, why is it not being done? And I just want to do it myself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's a good point. At least for my story, I'd always loved the design and the lore of gargoyles, but
Yeah.
outside of the Gargoyles TV series, it's been that creature has been so underutilized outside of smut romance films, but or
Yeah,
romance books,
exactly.
and that doesn't
So
count. But
true.
like you've had no live action films outside of I Frankenstein, which had like some small side characters, and it's like I enjoy werewolves, vampires, don't get me wrong, but those really unique, rare creatures that have that wow factor, we need more of that. And I was like, I'm like, someone has to do something with a gargoyle, something unique, really dive into that biblical lore and just create something expansive. And that's what I aim to do with this story. So I really tied in archangels and the religious aspect because, a lot of people believe, especially back in the day when they were building these Gothic churches, they put these gargoyles or grotesques on there to represent a creature that could look so fearful and so evil that it could instill fear in the most evilest of creatures or spirits, to keep evil out of the church and out of our souls. And that was part of the reason why I got a gargoyle tattoo. That spurred the idea, was that idea of having this representation of something that could keep evil out of your body. And I'm like, I'm going to take that idea and really expand on it.
I love
Right,
that.
this creature that is here to protect humanity and is so evil looking that it instills fear in evil itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would look at my covers and assume like it's a demon because gargoyles haven't been represented. So it's, just getting the idea of a gargoyle out there and making people realize like the lore behind it and the potential is unbelievable. So when you read this
Yeah, heck yeah.
story, it's going to be so unique because it's never been done. And the Gargoyles TV series was great, don't get me wrong, but the gargoyles were just gargoyles all day long, and they turned to stone at a certain time of the day, and it was a medieval backstory. And medieval stuff, King Arthur, like that's also been done a lot, but not a gargoyle that is human by day, not a gargoyle that could just turn his fist to stone if he would like, or has night vision, things like that that could sense if a human has a soul or not, have that
Yeah.
that tie into angels. So that's
Hmm.
what I'm trying to pique people's interest with this storyline, because it's not what you would expect in terms of that TV series, but also, it's a creature that hasn't been appreciated or utilized much. So
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. Chris Crenham says, Clayton, do you ever talk to Corey about the films to get his opinions and deep analysis as well? It must be cool having a brother that is into the same stuff. Do I do that with you, Corey? I feel like we do that.
Is Chris
If we're
Cranham, bro? Is Chris Cranham a real person? Because it sounds like something you would write in order to get yourself to say that.
really,
Yes, me. Yeah, like we talk about movies all the time. We do. I don't know. For some reason, Chris Cranham just sounds a lot like Clayton in a way.
yeah, yeah. I think Corey and I do talk about that stuff a lot. Like if we see a really great scene in a movie, um, man, if we hear good dialogue. So we were watching a movie yesterday, Memento,
Oh
Memento, yeah,
and
yes.
there was this
good movie.
brilliant line in it that stuck with me. And I hadn't seen it in about 10 years, so I didn't remember a whole lot from it. But there's this one line where he's like, so he can't remember anything beyond a few minutes,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
then his short term memory resets. And this woman's saying, listen, that he's talking to, even if you get vengeance, you're not going to remember it.
Hmm.
It's not going to matter. So what's the point? And he says, it doesn't matter if I remember or not. Like it's about my wife and getting vengeance for her.
Hmm.
Just because I close my eyes doesn't mean the world disappears. And
Hmm.
I felt like that concept of doing something beyond yourself having an effect in like leaving a footprint, leaving an effect in the world, even if you don't know it.
Hmm.
There's something just so amazing about that. It really, really spoke to me in a way, and I
Yeah.
thought that was one of the best lines ever.
Yeah, Nolan is, in my mind, just a genius when it comes to films, and I don't think anyone can match him in the modern age, honestly. Because you take a movie like Memento, it was his first film. It
Was it?
had a
What?
yeah,
That's
it was like his
crazy.
his first film that he wrote and directed, and it had a tiny budget, and he's just doing something crazy, right? Any other director that would have been like, "Hey, I'm basically gonna play the movie backwards to where at the beginning you're gonna be confused as hell." They'd be like, "Mm-mm, no, we're not signing up this." But
Yeah, we
it
had to
it, it
restart it.
Well,
yeah,
we had to
it,
restart it for Corey. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
but
like,
it
I
like
didn't get it.
yeah, what it does is it proves that, he was willing to go outside the norm, to try something new and unique because he had this idea and this passion for this story, and look at what it did. It's like a cult favorite now,
Yeah.
and it set the tone for the rest of his movies because every movie he does, he doesn't he doesn't follow the typical guidelines of a film. These are films that, yeah, they're not made for everyone because they make you think. They're a movie you have to pay attention hard to understand, but when you do that and you get it, you get this massive wow moment or wow effect. With Interstellar or every single movie, Inception, once he leaves enough Easter eggs throughout it, and then you finally get what has happened or what's going on, you're like, "Holy shit, that just broke my mind." He does that, and that he he really really pushes the
Yeah.
boundaries of filmmaking, and he's one of the few directors or writers that does both. Every film but one, he writes and directs. So for 3, 4 years, he puts all of his efforts, all of his heart and soul into one film, right? Because he wants to make it so amazing and he wants to have full control over this idea. And outside
Mhm.
of Batman, like he's not recreating an existing IP. Like this is 100% organic, and I love that. And you know, other writers, they're just bouncing from job to job because it's a job. And
Yeah.
same with directors, but for him, it's different. And I think he's someone that everyone should aspire to be like
Oh
in
yeah.
their own creative, avenue.
I had that same thought when I was watching Memento. I thought,
Yeah.
man, how gutsy is that to take this format
Hmm.
direction with the movie, because it's a risk.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a big risk, but it did work, I think. And one of the beautiful things it illustrates, first and foremost, is the art of exposition,
Hmm.
giving context. So, not explaining everything that's going on within the movie, but slowly revealing the context of the
Hmm.
things that have happened
Hmm.
throughout it. And you can do that with a regular film, and it's beautiful when it's done right because
Yeah.
it can just blow your mind, right? So
Yep.
there's a horror film that I watched once. It was a Thai movie called Shutter,
Hmm.
and it was one of the coolest horror movies that I ever watched. It was scary as hell, and I'll tell you one of the most disturbing parts in it. So throughout the movie, the main character, he starts to get these neck pains, and he's like, "Man, my neck, my back's hurting so much," and he's wondering why. It's like really painful for him, and he goes to the doctor to get an X-ray, and he sees that his back, like his the back of his neck, his spine is kind of, a little bit bent and messed up looking. He's like, "Man, what is causing this?" And so throughout the movie, you're like, man, he keeps on bringing up this back pain. And of course, there's this ghost that's been sort of haunting everybody, haunting him and everyone else.
Hmm.
And at the end, Sorry, by the way, for the spoilers that I'm about to dish
Wait,
out.
is he like a photographer or something?
Yeah,
Or-
he's a photographer. That's why it's called Shutter. And so he's only able to capture this ghost on the Polaroids, right?
Hmm.
And so he knows that the ghost is in the room. So he starts shooting with the Polaroid. And he's like, where is this ghost? And the camera, he drops it and it falls on the ground and it starts taking photos of him.
Mm.
And the woman or whoever he's with picks up the photo, the Polaroid. By the way, I'm not sure if I'm remembering it exactly, but she picks up the Polaroid and she sees a photo of him, and on his back is sitting the ghost.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you realize throughout the whole movie, this freaking ghost has been hitching a ride on him. And it makes everything that has happened up until that point so much more disturbing.
Yep, that's
So
awesome.
so I love that when something happens in a story and you don't necessarily realize how significant it is until later on. It can really
Yep.
blow your mind.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Have either of you seen the movie The Accountant?
No, I started watching that and Corey got bored, so we had to turn it off.
I
So
felt like this is a movie that's trying to make me feel bad for some special needs stuff.
so I highly recommend watching it through because it has one of those endings that you're just like, oh my gosh, this all makes sense, and it's like a heartfelt, like it's a good feeling, and
Yeah.
like you'll love it, and it actually
Awesome.
yeah, it's powerful. I would recommend
We're
watching
gonna
that.
watch
Yeah.
it. We're
I
gonna watch
did
it.
like
We started and stopped a lot of movies. Corey came over yesterday, and we started and stopped a lot of movies that were super boring.
just boring starting, yeah. I did
Yep.
like because I play a lot of games, but Metal Gear Solid 5 had a pretty good twist ending.
Hmm.
Because right at the start, for some reason, it starts out with you having to create your own character, but then you start playing like the big boss, which is like the main character of the game throughout it. And I think right towards the end, he looks in a mirror and you work out that you're not actually the big boss. You are the main character you created, but you had plastic surgery to look like
Hmm.
him. So you're like a
Hmm.
fake clone or something. I thought that was
Nice.
a really cool twist that he's done.
Yeah, twists
Yeah,
are awesome in any type of story. Like that's what keeps the intrigue and keeps you hooked, and
heck
then
yeah.
when it happens, you know, that's when a story sticks with you. That's when you'll be able to tell other people about it, right? That's why I can bring up Watchmen, I can bring up these Nolan movies and The Accountant, because that wow factor, that hook, that it's
Mm,
stuck with me, and you want to create that for someone else so that maybe in 5, 10 years, like, man, yeah, that one book, this happened, like that
yeah.
would be so cool to be able to create something that does that for folks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It is powerful. And I think about the Matrix, and I know early on you found out Neo was in the Matrix, but that movie could have been done very differently in a way where you only found out he was in the Matrix at the end. And then
Mm-hmm.
it just is like, what? So nothing was real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why he could do all that crazy stuff. Oh my goodness. He didn't have superpowers. He was in the Matrix.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, but it's really fun talking about movies. I think,
Oh yeah.
you know, you'll have to come back, Brent, and we'll
Oh
kick
yeah.
off the Button Bros show again at some point, and we'll get you on as a regular guest, and we'll talk about this stuff because you're very
Yeah.
good as a guest. You have a lot of
Thank you.
thoughts, and you speak really well, probably better than I do about this
No,
stuff.
you've got the suave
I
bonus,
try. I fake it till I make it. All right. Well, let's get up your actual campaign here. I
Yeah,
just want
yeah.
to run people through it so that they can see some of the amazing art. And I'll
Yep.
upload this to our podcast too. So for those who are just listening and can't actually see what we're looking at, uh, what? Well, let's describe some of the artwork here. There's this evil octopus looking dude, which
Mhm.
has always been one of the main characters that have stood out for me in the visuals that you've got made up by Corey.
Mm-hmm.
and of course the main character of the story, the gargoyle, who looks absolutely awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I see Corey's artwork and the amount of detail that he puts into it with this style takes me right back to some of his first comic books. Like he worked on this big project called The Vault for a while, and
Yeah,
he
that
did
was crazy.
the original Kozor as well. And this artwork here just brings me right back. So it's good that he can still pull it off really well,
Mm-hmm.
and that he's capable of doing it, even though he's been working in this more clean style for Andromenoids.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention, Corey's colors are just off the chart. I mean, he is one
Mm-hmm.
of the best colorists I think that are out there. Now, you can always be a better colorist. Of course, I'm always telling Corey that. I'm like, man, you know what? You're pretty good, but that doesn't mean you're the best. No one's the best. You still got to like keep on outperforming yourself. Like,
It,
how can you get better than what you are today?
there's this funny thing because me and Clayton sort of like diss each other all the time. I
Mhm.
told Clayton about this Whiplash movie that I watched. I thought it was a great movie, right? I showed him one clip of the teacher abusing like the student, and so Clayton every now and then he's like, Corey, I think you should be trying more things with your colors. And he like tries to get intense about it, like the teacher. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give you some whiplash, man. I'm gonna give you some whiplash. Like, man, for starters, you only seen a little clip. You need to watch the entire movie for the entire context of what happens to the teacher and the student.
Totally, totally.
Uh,
Um, and that's why Corey hides artwork like this from me. I didn't see this until Brent had posted it out on social media. I was like, "What,
Come on.
Damn.
Corey? You did this? Like this looks epic."
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, that worked out perfectly. I mean, just
mm.
damn.
Yeah, it looks really
Thanks,
incredible.
man.
And then you've got this piece here that looks like a total classic.
Mm-hmm.
And then this beautiful artwork as well. See, this is the one that I saw, which reminded me so much of Corey's old school style.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had this is when he was just knocking out comic book pages. I don't know how fast he whipped this up for you, but I know with the Vault, he was smashing out one of these every day or two. Not to give away your
Nice.
secrets, Corey, but that's what these pages remind me
And
of.
that was when I was pretty like very early 20s, and I was like hardcore. I need to make some money in comics. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to have to get a normal job.
And these
So I
ones
Yep.
started
here,
out pages.
I haven't seen these. Corey never sent them to me, but they look
Yeah, I
really
haven't
cool.
covered that yet. I'm looking forward to covering it though, especially
Yeah,
the second page there. The
Oh yeah. The
yeah,
yeah, I
blood.
love this. It's so good to see.
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, Corey, you just got to do your artwork and not show me until later. So then I won't have to give you critiques along the way. But yeah, this is just some really great stuff, and I love the way in which you've laid out the campaign as well, Brent.
Thank
You've
you.
got all the character profiles here, which is, us as geeky comic book nerds, we love to see this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Corey and I are always fantasizing about doing something like this up on our
Yeah.
website for all the characters that we've got. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you've gone ahead and you've done it, and it tells me that this is a very special book, something that's close to your heart
Mm-hmm.
when this level of work is put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some awesome Joe Ball work here.
Mm-hmm.
Skunk work? Is it Skunk or Joe Ball?
Those ones are Joe, and then Skunks did the painted
All
wraparound
right.
cover. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So Corey, how do you feel about being part of this project? You must be pretty proud to be part of
Man,
this.
I thought that picture I sent Brent was like way better at the time, but then he cropped it like that. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
That actually was the hardest part of the project, was getting a picture of Corey.
Oh yeah, true.
Took months, but
Yeah.
I got it in the final minute.
He
So
found a good one. You found a good one rather. And then you've got this jigsaw puzzle. So I didn't know you were making a lunchbox and a jigsaw puzzle with
Oh,
yeah,
Corey's
true.
artwork on it. Like
yeah,
this looks Really cool.
Yeah.
Such a classic piece that Corey's done up as well.
It's like a big puzzle too.
It's something that
Yeah.
people will remember. You know,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
something that'll stay with them.
Yep.
Great to see. And so how far are you into creating this project, and when do you think it'll be ready to send out to everybody who's jumped on board and backed?
It'll be really quick. So the novels are 100% done, and I already have books in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So all that's left is the mini comic, which Corey only has one more page to draw and some coloring to do. And
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you
so
want me to get
my
that up for you? Or do you want me to make that bigger for you as you're
oh,
showing
sure.
it? Yeah.
So my goal is to have the mini comic 100% done with some samples by October. So that would mean I'd be able to fulfill right away in October as soon as the funds transfer. So
That's a thick
you
book.
yeah, yeah, and they're
Very
comic
cool.
book size too. So they're much different from a normal novel. They're laminated as well, so they have extra protection from scratches and such. So my goal is to be fulfilling in October, which would mean a 90-day or less turnaround from the start of the campaign.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
That's
yep.
good. It's good to get books fast.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, man. Is there, before we jump into the trailer, is there any final things that you want to say about the story and I guess what people can expect when they decide to back today?
Yeah, so, as I've alluded to, this is a story that it's got a lot of emotion to it, philosophical elements, horror elements. You're getting a big blend of attributes. So you're going to have the Lovecraft style storytelling with the antagonist Incubus there that resembles an octopus. He has this crazy mind control serum that allows him to enter the subconscious of his subjects, bend their mind to his will to create super soldiers. And so you get that really eerie, trippy, Lovecraft vibe while he's in their mind and tormenting them. So that gets really intense. And then on the gargoyle side, you're getting, this angelic backstory tying into archangels. And, when you combine everything, it's setting up this massive war in the city of Detroit between the gargoyle and his team of vigilantes, and then Incubus and his army of super soldiers. And you have a lot of Easter eggs along the way. The same thing, trying to build that intrigue. And, this team of vigilantes is trying to counter this mind control serum and also trying to infiltrate his, fortress of corruption there that is in the background. So it's this just massive scale war that's happening in the city of Detroit. And then you have some amazing backstories for the characters, the angelic grimoire itself that has turned him into a gargoyle. So it takes you back into World War II era. It takes you all the way back, into, I mean, pre-Jesus time, right? It
Wow.
goes, BC into when this grimoire was created and how it's impacted civilization from from the dawn of time. And so it's a really expansive story, and I hope folks will be intrigued by the art, and they'll be intrigued by the quality of the art, and between that and the storyline and the characters, they'll give the novels a chance. And hopefully I can get comic folks as well to maybe reignite their interest in novels, because it's going to be an immersive reading experience unlike any other novel.
Awesome. Heck yeah. All right. Let's check out the trailer.
Sounds good.
And yeah, let me know if there's no sound coming through. I'm pretty sure there should be. That is a wicked trailer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Who did that up for you?
Vaughn did.
Ah, nice. Got to get him to
Yeah.
do our trailers.
Oh yeah.
Well, B.A. Turner, my friend, it has been an absolutely wonderful time talking to you today. And I'm really glad that Corey could join us, that he could make it for
Yeah.
the interview. I'd love to do it again sometime as well.
Hmm.
And it's always wonderful to see creators doing their thing, putting their ideas out there into the world, manifesting them in whatever medium they seem fit, whether it be a novel, a comic book, a movie, a video game, whatever it is. It's just great that you're getting it out there and getting involved
Hmm.
other incredible talents along the way, because oftentimes it is a collaboration to bring our ideas to life, and it takes time, it takes energy, and a lot of effort, and that's what makes these creations so special.
Yeah.
And I think really why people enjoy them in the end, because they sense that, they sense the amount of passion and time that went into it.
Hmm.
I'm
Thank you.
sure Vigilantes Creed will be no different. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks a lot
Thank you.
to the live audience that has tuned in today. It's
Yeah.
been so great to have you here. Really appreciate your comments. And if you'd like to see more interviews like this one, where we spotlight the different creators throughout our indie comics community, throughout Comicsgate, then be sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, that's it,
Yeah.
everyone. Thanks so
Awesome.
much. All right. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye bye for now.